there we go. How about take 50 on to sinew back or not to sinew back? That is the question. Or rawhide back, or back at all. There's so many factors. It's hard to like steer down a straight path when you're talking about the whys of sinew backing, but let me give it another shot and maybe I'll actually download this. The easiest explanation is if you make bows, you sell them to the general public, as I did more on eBay than on my YouTube channel, because most of you are into bows, and I sell bows to people that make bows too. But when I was on eBay, I don't know how many times, just some impulse buy. Oh, that's kind of nice. I'm going to buy it for my nephew for Christmas. And then, you know, the nephew like sees how far back he can pull it, or they string it backwards and it breaks and I replace it. The easiest way to explain why so many people, and people that make Osage longbows, will sinew back them or rawhide back them, is just so they don't have to replace them, because people are people. Next up it goes to, well, I sinew back, and I am kind of picking on you, but it's valid. It really is valid. I sinew back some longbows, and I didn't see any performance difference. Spent all that time, and some expense if you bought your tendons, waited, and another question, it's a good place for it. How long do you let it go and before you use it? Yes, I mean, obviously people would sinew back little horse bows or whatever kind of bows and then use them as soon as they're hard. You've got a protective layer. This stuff is nice and hard, and it's going to protect the back. But I have seen is not only a stave bow maker, but a board bow maker, where I have the ability to make exact duplicates of bows from the same piece of wood. No surprises, same grain, same tree, same board. Sinew back one, sinew back another one. Equal amounts of sinew in the same period, you know, really. So I've got 2 carbon copies of bows, and did this a couple times. More than a couple times. Is that I'll wait only 2 weeks for one bow, and that one may or may not get that mysterious drop off in weight. I'll have another one that's just sitting and sometimes forgetting for months and months. That will be a better bow. Sure, the first one will work, that I didn't wait long, but with sinew, for some mysterious reason, don't ask me how. You know, it seems like it's dry, it's ready to go. I don't know how it works, but it just works. And I will fight this point tooth and nail, because I've seen it and I can reproduce it. That the longer you wait for it to cure, the better the bow is going to be, the more sinewy it can be. Now there's back protection, there's longevity, and then there's actually adding some horsepower to the bow with sinew. And obviously you can add horsepower to a bow with sinew. Look at the horn bows. I mean, they were masters. 3-4 layers. Layer, you know, and they're doing it so it's in reflex. And then that first layer shrinks down, and there's ways of doing this. You can't just take a hard back and then size it and then put another layer on it and keep it from delaminating. There's tricks of the trade. Second layer, go more in a reflex. Third layer, more in a reflex, because it's reflexed, it's reflexing more, it reflexes more. You know, pretty simple. They're adding horsepower to a bow. With the small bow and the West Coast paddle bows, which were diminutive, and they would actually string them backwards to get tons of reflex in it. And then, you know, it was actually a composite bow. The sinew in the yew or the juniper, you know, what have you. And not just a protection layer, but size matters. On a small bow like this, highly stressed, overdrawn by standards. You know, if you were to take this bow and enlarge it to 66 inches, it would be like drawing it probably 32 inches. I mean, these small bows, they get used. I'm not going to rawhide back this. Yes, it would protect it, but Sinew has this remarkable ability to relax over use. You set it aside, you warm it, sit in the sun, whatever. A rack above a wood stove, bake it. It's going to reinvigorate. Rawhide won't. Rawhide will protect the back of a bow from breaking, yeah. But you got your wet rawhide, you lay it on the bow. Is it going to go into reflex like sinew? No, it's not. It's just going to protect the bow. A single layer of sinew, thin, protective layer, kind of the same thing, but it's stronger than rawhide. In the consideration of longbows, sinew backing, people will say, I've added weight to the longbow. And you can be clever about it. You can have more thickness of sinew here than at the tips. Keep your tips light. You don't have to have a thick layer over here in the 5 or 6 inches of nothing zone. You know, there's a lot of leverage out here. That's why heavy war bows can have skinny tips, like pencils. Maybe a little exaggeration, but look at them. Joe Gibbs, 140-pound longbow, and the tips are no bigger than this. So you don't have to build up your sinew layers all the way to the tips like you would middle limbs. You keep the tips light. Maybe work them down a little bit in narrowness until they scream, and then sinew back it. You know, adjust a little bit, but it's not just about, I did this longbow, 190 feet per second. I sinew back it. It's going to be awesome. And I didn't build a lot of reflex in it. You know, I just, nice layer of sinew. But it will reflex a little bit. Sinew. 2 feet per second faster. It's like, I spent all this time putting that sinew on. I didn't get any more performance. But what's that bow going to look like as far as speed? 195 feet per second. After 4,000 shots, you know, maybe a number of years, is it still going to be that fast? Probably not. Because, like people, you know, they age, they get a little slower. When you put that sinew on there, especially not 4 inches thick, but, you know, a couple layers, it'll probably still be close to the original speed. Closer than that softball. I'm not going to commit to saying, yes, after 10 years and 10,000 shots, it's still going to be the same as it was when it's new. No. Obviously, you know, it's degraded over time. But it's not going to be broken. And it's going to be closer to that original speed than the comparable softball. So it's also time. You've got this bow. You like this bow. You might have gotten your first deer with this bow. You want it to last, right? So it's sinew some insurance. The rawhide, yeah, you're going to get insurance. As far as breaking, it's probably not going to break. It's going to last longer. But the funny thing about sinew, it's able to relax and then go back, especially if you waited a long time for it to cure. It's going to be better if you wait a long time for some magical reason. I don't know, leprechauns or something. But the rawhide, no. It did its job. It protected it. But it's not like sinew where it can relax from a lot of use and then spring back, because it just doesn't have the tensile strength. It's got good protection, but doesn't have the good tensile strength. So I ask you, you know, an exact case, 66-inch hickory longbow, approximately 47 pounds, and you know who I'm talking about. Congratulations on getting your first deer with a southpaw. Everyone's like, good man. You know, and you're thinking about doing some sinew backing. And is it going to make that hickory southpaw faster? I don't know. Kind of depends on how you go about the sinew, how much you put on. You know, did you put it into reflex when you sinew backed it, for example? Maybe it's not going to add into any speed. Diminishing returns, extra weight of sinew, you know, the snappiness of it. But, you know, the chances are very good that that hickory bow that you sinew backed, especially if you fire hardened it, get some reflex in it, the longevity is going to be greatly extended. And you know, that's where it is. When I make a bow, and not like one of these short bows, which they will be sinew backed just because they're so stressed. And sinew is cool. Don't underestimate the factor of cool. I mean, that's why you're watching this kind of a channel, and you might watch compound bow channels, but and they're cool in your own way, the technological way, but these are cool in the history of sinew and the use on the Great Plains and other places. You know, but it's personal choice. But I would always sinew back a small bow just so I've got that ability to not use many sinews. It doesn't matter as much because the levers are short, so I can wrap the tips all I want. It doesn't matter. But I will use one of these things. And I will lose some reflex, even if it's Osage, you know, because I'm pushing the envelope here. And I set it aside and I go and play with another bow, and by the time I get to this one, and I'm pretty good about it if it's sunny and windy, these things are out in the elements, it's going to gain a little reflex. It's going to come back. 56-inch bow, you know, really, unless it's a lightish, you know, board bow or what have you. I'm trying to be economical for you. You know, you're going to get a good bow if it's rawhide back. But if it's a stave-made bow, 56 inches, especially if it's recurved, to keep those recurves in recurve, if they're active recurves and not static, which means there's thicker wood there and the recurves don't unwind and then spring back, it's going to be sinew back. I'm going to give it every opportunity to maintain reflex and keep from getting string follow and sinew. That's my only choice because, again, the rawhide will relax and it's not going to spring back. It can't relax after a day of shooting and then sit in the sun the next day and spring back. It just won't. Up to 56 inches or so, yeah, I'm going to sinew back. Beyond that, like my paddle bows and my talisman, in the board bows, you know, I'm going to rawhide back because it's good, it's protective, it's not going to break, and it's quick, and it's nice to paint on. And those bows are what they are. I would never sinew back a paddle bow, one of my 66 inches, because that's just a buttload of sinew, because 2.5 inches wide, the widest. The talisman, less than 2.5, but the limb is shorter, and then it's a needle tip, so that's not much sinew at all. And I could even get by with not putting the sinew all the way to those needle tips. I could just sinew back the paddle, you know, and bring it up the needle tip a little bit and wrap it to secure it, but I'm not adding any to the weight of the tips. The blade doesn't matter because it's closer to the handle. Doesn't matter as much. Good. Now, as far as this one, I'm doing the tips right now. See, I just cut it off where it's going to be that lozenge tablet kind of thing, and then the sinew wrap is going to hold the string from going zoop. This one has some of those lines that run down it, and there's a couple causes. There's not always just one cause for anything. It could be that the sinew dried too fast. Yes, somebody made that comment. I agree. If it's thick and it dries real fast and this, that, or the other thing and whatnot and etc., it's kind of an inside joke. Yeah, you can get some of those lines. They're not killers. And I just run it over steam from a kettle and then get it wet with water, and it subdues the colors of those things. But I compress mine. 2 layers of sinew, or yeah, 2 layers of gauze. It's highly compressed. And I look at it every so often, then I wrap it back up. And when I showed you in that one video that little white spot that wasn't dried all the way, after I was done, I wrapped it up. And so that's not why I got these. A couple other reasons would be I just didn't use enough sinew, so when I compress it and it shrinks, you're going to see some little skinny slivers of wood there. The other one is if you put bundles, you're doing the bundle method, you dip them and you put a bundle on there. If you have any twists in those and they aren't perfectly straight down there, parallel, you're going to get a little those lines. It's going to look like a mesh. But it's not a killer. You know, as long as you sized your bow right and, you know, you did a pretty good job and you did squish it down a little bit, you're not going to have a bow failure, because you see a little, like right here, that's one of the big ones. I got a couple big ones on there. Big deal. I could always put another layer and then squish it down here, but I'm not going to, because that adds to the character of it and it's not going to affect anything. Well, that is all. I think I answered everything, how long you let it cure, in my humble opinion. The differences between Sinew and Rawhide, and the importance of longevity. Now, in the case of Steve, hello Steve, 68-inch longbow. I mean, personally, I wouldn't Sinew back a 68-inch longbow, but Steve has a massive 30-inch draw. So that kind of scales it down to a 65, 66-inch longbow. And so combining that with the nostalgia of this bow he's had for a long time, let's say put a layer of Sinew on it. You know, preserve it. It will outlive all of us when you do that. Even Osage longbows, you know, can break eventually if you use them enough, because every cycle, you know, does something to it. Do that for thousands and thousands and thousands of shots over a course of many years. Yeah. So why not? Sinew back it. Oh, last bit. The Jay Massey. I think he went to Black Powder. I'm not even sure if he's still alive. I hope he is. I think he is. I'm hoping. But he developed this system for making just iron bows, bulletproof bows, because he hunted in Alaska in all sorts of horrible weather, you know, for moose and all sorts of large animals that could eat them and stomp them into next week. And so his bows could not fail. If he dropped them in a river, you have to retrieve them. They cannot fail. If you drop them over a cliff, they cannot fail. And so he used Osage Sinew. It's going to be a bulletproof bow. And he would take acetone and thin out epoxy glue. It actually doesn't affect the curing of epoxy glue. It just makes it really, really thin. You wipe it on, let it cure, wipe on another layer, keep building it up. It's going to be plasticky and shiny, but you could probably knock that down with some really fine grit sandpaper. You can't do that with Rawhide. It makes it brittle. And I saw that with a paddle bow. I had paddle bow, Rawhide back, that modest weight, 45 pounds, you know. Didn't need the Rawhide back it, but I wanted to paint on it. And Jay Massey finished it. And it didn't even make it to half draw before it just literally just cleanly cracked in half. It also shows you the strength of Sinew over Rawhide. But don't try that Massey finish on a Rawhide bow unless you want it just to break. That is all. That's all. Thank you for listening.